There's something strange about the number 27. It's the age when a shocking number of rock legends took their final bow. Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, all dead, all 27. And they're not alone. The 27 Club has become one of the darkest and most discussed patterns in music history, a mix of tragedy, myth, and raw reality. But was it just bad luck, or is there something more behind the number? This is the story of the 27 Club, and why the price of fame might just be too high for some to survive. If you're into real rock history and stories that go deeper than the headlines, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel. Because what you're about to discover goes way beyond what you think you know about these legends. The term 27 Club wasn't coined by the media or record labels. It came from fans who started noticing a disturbing pattern. A wave of revolutionary artists, specifically musicians, seemed to hit their creative peak, then suddenly vanish, all at age 27. No one called it a club at first, but by the time Kurt Cobain passed in 1994, the label stuck. And it wasn't just a conspiracy theory anymore. It felt real. But here's what most people don't know. The pattern actually started decades before rock and roll even existed. Robert Johnson, the legendary bluesman who supposedly sold his soul to the devil at a crossroads, died in 1938. The exact cause? Still a mystery. Some say he was poisoned by a jealous husband. Others talk about strychnine in a bottle of whiskey. He was 27 years old. This death, decades before rock exploded onto the scene, already carried the elements that would define the club. Supernatural talent, a wild lifestyle, and a premature death shrouded in mystery. In the 1960s, another name would join the list. Alan "Blind Owl" Wilson, vocalist and guitarist of Canned Heat. Wilson was a blues scholar, obsessed with the music's history, but he struggled with severe depression. He was found dead in 1970 at 27, apparently from a barbiturate overdose. His death was overshadowed by bigger tragedies that would come just weeks later. But he was there, part of the pattern. The number isn't cursed in a literal sense. It's symbolic, tied to creative genius, self-destruction, and a brutal industry that often fails to protect the very people who fuel it. Before the avalanche of 1970 to 71, there was Brian Jones, the founder of the Rolling Stones. And when I say founder, I mean it literally. Jones placed the ad that brought the band together. He named them. He shaped their early sound with his experimental approach and multi-instrumental genius. While Keith Richards was mastering guitar, Jones was picking up the sitar, the dulcimer, the marimba, whatever could add a new texture to their music. But by the late 60s, Jones was spiraling. His drug use was out of control. His relationship with the band, especially with Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, had deteriorated. They were writing the hits now. Jones was becoming irrelevant, a liability. In June 1969, Jones was kicked out of the band he created. The official story, he was leaving to pursue other projects. The truth, he was fired. Less than a month later, on July 3, 1969, Jones was found dead at the bottom of his swimming pool at Cotchford Farm, the same estate where Winnie the Pooh author A. Milne once lived. Officially, death by misadventure, drowning while under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Unofficially, nobody really knows. Conspiracy theories still swirl. Was he murdered by a builder working on his property? Was it suicide? An accident? What we do know is this. Brian Jones was 27 years old, and he was the first high-profile rock star to die at that age in the modern era. The pattern was beginning. In the span of just 10 months, between September 1970 and July 1971, three of the biggest rock icons of the era died. The music world would never be the same. Jimi Hendrix wasn't just a guitarist, he reinvented the guitar. What he could do with feedback, distortion, and pure instinct was something no one had ever seen or heard before. But here's what they don't tell you in the documentaries. Hendrix was exhausted, completely burned out. In the months before his death, he was doing over 200 shows a year. His manager, Mike Jeffrey, a former British intelligence officer known for shady tactics, was pushing Hendrix beyond his limits. Hendrix barely slept. He took amphetamines to stay awake on stage and sedatives to try to rest afterward. He wanted to change direction musically. He wanted to explore jazz, deeper blues, escape the wild guitarist image the industry had created for him. But they wouldn't let him. There were contracts, tours, money at stake. Hendrix was also dealing with legal troubles. His former manager was suing him. The pressure was crushing. On the night of September 17, 1970 in London, Hendrix was at the apartment of his German girlfriend, Monica Dannemann. He took 9 Vesperax tablets, a strong sleeping pill, far more than the recommended dose. A few hours later, he choked on his own vomit while unconscious. The mixture of barbiturates and red wine was fatal. Monica called the ambulance, but it was too late. Jimi Hendrix was 27 years old. And here's something disturbing. To this day, there are theories that his death wasn't completely accidental. Some, including the doctor who attended to him, questioned the amount of wine found in his lungs. But we'll never know the full truth. Just 16 days after Hendrix died, the world lost another irreplaceable voice. Janis Joplin was pure raw emotion turned into sound. When she sang, you felt every wound, every desperate search for love and acceptance. Janis grew up in Port Arthur, Texas, a conservative oil town where she never fit in. She was bullied, called ugly, mocked for being different. That pain became her fuel. It's what made her voice so visceral, so real. But by 1970, Janis was trying to change. She had quit heroin. She was excited about her new album, Pearl. Her friends said she seemed happier, more hopeful. She was even talking about getting married. On the night of October 3, 1970, Janis was at the Landmark Motor Hotel in Los Angeles, recording Pearl. She left the studio around midnight, grabbed some cigarettes from the lobby, and went back to her room. The next afternoon, her road manager found her wedged between the bed and a nightstand. She had injected heroin that was far purer, and therefore much stronger, than what she was used to. It stopped her heart almost instantly. On the nightstand was $4.50 in change. She had been planning to buy cigarettes the next morning. Janis Joplin was 27 years old. Her album Pearl, featuring Me and Bobby McGee, was released 3 months later. It became her biggest success, but she never got to see it. And then came Jim Morrison, the poet-philosopher of the Doors, charismatic, unpredictable, obsessed with death and transformation. By 1971, Morrison was done with Los Angeles, done with the fame circus. He wanted to be taken seriously as a poet, not just as a rock star. So he moved to Paris with his girlfriend, Pamela Corson, to write, to get clean, to reinvent himself. On July 3, 1971, Morrison was found dead in his bathtub at 17-19 Rue Beautreillis in the Marais district. Here's where it gets strange. There was no autopsy. French law didn't require one if there were no signs of foul play. The official cause of death was listed as heart failure, but the rumors have never stopped. Overdose, heart attack brought on by drugs. Was he even in the bathtub when he died? Some witnesses claim he overdosed at a nightclub and his body was moved back to the apartment. Pamela Corson told different versions of the story. She died 3 years later from a heroin overdose. The truth died with her. What we know for certain: Jim Morrison was 27 years old. 3 of the greatest icons of the psychedelic rock era. All gone, all too young, all within the same brutal 10-month window. The 27 Club was no longer just a coincidence. It was becoming a legend. Fast forward to the 90s. The energy is different, but the pattern returns with devastating force. Kurt Cobain, frontman of Nirvana, didn't want to be a celebrity. He wanted to scream for the outsiders, the misfits, the kids who didn't fit in, because he was one of them. Growing up in Aberdeen, Washington, Cobain felt abandoned after his parents' divorce. He bounced between relatives' houses. He slept under a bridge. Music became his only escape. When Nirvana released Nevermind in 1991, it was supposed to challenge pop culture. Instead, it became pop culture. The album sold 30 million copies. Kurt was suddenly the voice of a generation, and he hated it. He felt like a fraud. He struggled with chronic stomach pain that doctors couldn't diagnose. He turned to heroin, not just to numb emotional pain, but physical pain too. His marriage to Courtney Love was chaotic and scrutinized by the media. He was in and out of rehab. In March 1994, Cobain overdosed in Rome. Officially, it was called an accident, but many believe it was a suicide attempt. On April 5, 1994, after escaping from a rehab facility in Los Angeles, Kurt Cobain was found dead in the greenhouse above his garage in Seattle. He had died from a self-inflicted shotgun wound to the head. He'd been dead for days. His suicide note quoted Neil Young, "It's better to burn out than to fade away." He was 27 years old, and with Kurt, the 27 Club suddenly felt very real for a new generation. It wasn't just a pattern. It was starting to look like a prophecy. Internet forums exploded with discussions. The myth was reborn. Then came Amy Winehouse, one of the most distinctive, emotionally raw voices of the 2000s. With Back to Black, she became a global phenomenon. That voice, smoky, vintage, devastating, turned her into a superstar overnight. She won 5 Grammys in one night in 2008, but the world didn't love Amy. It consumed her. The paparazzi hunted her down like prey. Her struggles with addiction became tabloid jokes. Rehab wasn't just a song. It was her life, mocked and exploited for clicks and sales. Her relationships were toxic. Her marriage to Blake Fielder Civil was volatile and destructive. When he was imprisoned, Amy spiraled further. By 2011, Amy was trying to get clean. Some say she had succeeded with drugs, but alcohol crept back in. She was a binge drinker, would go days sober, then consume dangerous amounts in one sitting. On July 23, 2011, Amy was found dead in her flat in Camden, London. Her blood alcohol level was 5 times the legal limit. She had essentially drunk herself to death. Her bodyguard said she'd spent her last night watching old videos of herself performing, quietly reflecting. No drugs, just alcohol, loneliness, and a silence that stretched too long. Amy Winehouse was 27 years old. Her death sparked a global conversation about fame, mental health, and the way we treat celebrities, especially women, in crisis. But the conversation didn't last long enough. It never does. So what's with this age? Why 27? Some researchers say it's psychological. Your late 20s are when unresolved childhood trauma often surfaces. The brain finishes developing around 25. You start seeing yourself clearly, sometimes too clearly. Fame speeds that process up and distorts it. You're treated like a god, but you feel like a ghost. Others point to industry pressure. By 27, you've usually toured the world multiple times, seen the highest highs and lowest lows, made more money than you know what to do with. But there's no support system for what comes next. The machine keeps demanding more, but offers nothing back. Some blame addiction, the lifestyle, the access, the enabling. Rock and roll has always had a romance with excess. But that romance is a lie. It's just death in slow motion. Then there's the cultural obsession. We mythologize the tragic young artist. We turn their pain into poetry. There's even a study from 2011 that tried to statistically disprove the 27 Club, showing that musicians don't die at 27 any more than other ages. But here's the thing. Stats don't tell the whole story. The pain, the loss, the pattern, it's real, even if the explanation isn't clear. The 27 Club has over 70 members if you count all genres and eras. Some you've never heard of, others are legends. But they all share something. They burned bright, burned fast, and burned out. The 27 Club isn't about a number. It's about the fragility behind fame, about what happens when the spotlight becomes a trap. These weren't just rock stars. They were human, flawed, brilliant, broken in places no one saw until it was too late. Remembering them means more than repeating their names. It means questioning the systems that keep chewing up talent and spitting it out. It means recognizing the warning signs. It means caring about the person behind the microphone. And maybe, just maybe, learning how to keep the next legend alive. If stories like this hit you, if you want more real, raw rock history that goes beyond the surface, subscribe and stick around. There's a lot more to uncover. Drop a comment below. Which member of the 27 Club impacts you the most? Let's talk about it. Thanks for watching. And remember, Legends never die, but the people behind them deserve to live.